Hello and welcome to Live My Heart Today show number 72. This is a show designed to help you navigate change, uncertainty, and the new world we found ourselves in. We'll talk a little bit about science, a little bit about how our body works, a little bit about intuition, and we'll talk a lot about transformation.
Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by
Learn to play jazz piano like a pro. By a pro with Jazz Piano Pro Essentials at jazzpianopro.com.
And wearehistorically.com. Conscious human apparel. It's time for the next episode of Live by Heart
Today.
I'm Dawn Spiegelberg, medical, intuitive, and coherence coach. In our growth series, we are discussing today's theme, which is bonding dividends. And with me for today's Heart to Heart is my co-host, Wendy R. Wolf, professional transformation facilitator. Welcome, Wendy.
Hey, Dawn. So in our last show, it was investing in intimacy. And basically, this is investing in intimacy too. So exciting as far as I'm concerned. Our show is Live by Heart, and we cover a lot, but it's all about being in alignment and operating from a fullness of love. And so I'm just so excited because intimacy, I see, as I said last time, is real for the body. And there's other kinds of ways we experience love. We experience belonging, which is very earthy, basic experience that we have with ourselves and others and the earth. And also affinity, which is, from my perspective, the experience of oneness. So in between this is the very exciting intimacy. And I really look forward to talking more today about, the dividends of that, how much we receive as we give in intimacy.
And I think receiving out of our giving is something that often goes unnoticed or it's not discussed. There's that adage that you give more to receive, or it's better to give than to receive. And I'm not bought into that entirely, because we need both. And we need a balance of both. And we were talking about bonding and relationships. And in our last show, the importance of the beginning of relationships and how close we become and the kinds of things we can do in order to develop affection and trust with another person, and how fresh and new it is at the start. And then you and I were having a conversation about what happens over time. And it's not quite the same. And the reason it's not the same is because a relationship matures, it develops. Yes. And a beautiful picture is imagining all the needs of a newborn baby when they're a toddler. And that's very difficult to manage. Mm-hmm. Children who have a natural growth and development develop in certain ways, and there's an independence that begins. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do relationships.
Yeah, and it's so healthy. And now you have teenagers in your home.
Yeah.
Two teenagers?
Well, not quite yet.
Almost.
I have an 11-year-old. Yeah.
Yes.
And
so preteen and teenager.
Yeah.
And you have so much independence as well as they do.
Yes.
So you can do this show. You couldn't have done this show 10 years ago. Oh my goodness.
Not easily. Not easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with developing and maturing relationships comes momentum. And mm-hmm. there was a period of time in the not so distant past where they were talking about buckets. And there was a whole analogy regarding filling your bucket with water, because there will be times when you need to to take water out of your bucket. And
Yeah.
if your water level is low, taking out water is really noticeable. But when your bucket is full and overflowing, taking out some water isn't so obvious and
Yeah.
doesn't have such a painful result.
Mm-hmm.
And you were mentioning resilience in relationships.
It's so helpful. I mean, with long-term friendships, with partnerships. I mean, I call it the Seinfeld effect, where, one of the running jokes in Seinfeld is that they were all breaking up with people for just the most minuscule, ridiculous reasons. Um, so they could never get momentum in a relationship because, oh my gosh, she does this or she does that, or he does this, and it's crazy. Whereas in a more mature relationship where there's momentum, where the bucket is full, I can trip, I can make mistakes. Michael and I had last night about something, and it's just like, whatever. It doesn't matter. Nobody's breaking up over it. I don't have to worry about it. We can just go on. I mean, I of course want to clean it all up and talk about it and make sure. Michael's just like, it's over. But it's just so nice not to have to worry. And with long-term friends too, like, even if we don't see each other for a while, or even if, it's okay. I mean, you and I, sometimes we talk like many times a week, and sometimes it's longer, and whatever, we just pick up where we were because we have a full bucket.
And in our last show, we talked about ways to fill that bucket and refill it, especially after having been in relationship for a while, and it maybe feeling distant, less connected. So it's beautiful, because what I think is, it's the little things that fill our bucket, and it's the little things that can draw out of our bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we ensure we have more of the little things that fill our bucket, then we're less likely to go dry and be empty.
Yeah. Yeah. And not notice. And I feel like, especially you, but we both last time talked a lot about, investing and initiating and inviting intimacy and paying attention to each other and being curious. And all these things keep filling the bucket, because the last thing we want is to end up with a bucket empty ever in any relationship. And there's just it's hard to come back from that. It's so much harder to come back from that than when there's plenty, and there's plenty of grace. We call it, my friends and I, lots of grace. It's like, oh yeah, whatever. And you're wonderful at that, Dawn. I just want to say, you're wonderful at that. It's just like, oh, I'm 5 minutes late again. And you're like, oh, whatever. It's just like, 5 minutes late again. Right. And you're just so generous about that, and there's times that you're not, not with me, but there's times that you tell me that you're not. And so that's kind of fascinating, right? It's like, I find you so generous all the time, 99% of the time. So it's interesting, the other day when I heard you were like reporting yourself as not generous about stuff like that. It's like, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I was looking at that very carefully, because I noticed, wow, why wasn't I being generous in this moment? And all the things behind it, who was the person? What was the situation? What was it in reflection of? And what I noticed was that this is really interesting. It was a new relationship, someone I didn't really know. And so I hadn't had any water in my bucket from this relationship. And so the moments that I was attempting to interact with this person, they were taking water out, except there was no water in there. And so I was thinking, what's going on here? I'm not feeling generous in this moment. And then I realized, oh, this bucket doesn't have anything in it. And what I'm being shown is who and why this person is. So I was looking at myself and saying, why doesn't this feel right? And instead of looking at the relationship itself, and I have a pattern of, looking inward. And it was showing me, oh no, it's not my aspect of this, right? I'm coming with a bucket ready, right, to interchange, ready to put some in. And if there's some in, take some out. But there was nothing in it because the relationship was brand new. And so the relationship that I was attempting to build was really frail. It wasn't, and the first time something happens where someone needs to take water out of your bucket, you realize, oh, I need to come with a full bucket. That was my lesson. Oh, I should be coming with a bucket that's full, not one that's empty, to see how the interaction is going to go and see if they give me any.
Right.
So I shifted, and I came with a full bucket. And then I just noticed, oh, how much of my bucket are they taking out? And not that I wasn't willing to give it. I was very willing to give it. But I was just noticing, is this a pattern that will continue if I pursue a longer term relationship with this person?
Right.
And interestingly, based on some of the feedback from other people who I have given to and they've given back, they've said, oh, yes, this person tends to be someone who takes out of buckets. Very
so your
fascinating.
impression was correct. And
Yes.
you're still learning to show up with lots of grace, lots of generosity, and see what happens.
Yes, to fill my bucket first.
Yes, beautiful.
And then decide if I want to continue being in a relationship where they aren't as full. And to ask the question, am I the person to be in this position to help them learn how to be full? Or is that something for someone else?
Right. And I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because we've spent a lot of time, this time and last time, and many times, talking about being joyful givers, or whatever you might. And it's very important for people who are naturally loving or meaning to be loving to be paying attention, because there's a regular people. Yes, please give, please love, please invite intimacy, please pay attention, be curious, give. But then there's the other kind of people that I deal with a lot, that big healers, lovers, givers, empaths, these kind of people. And that's what you're talking about. It doesn't mean just give and overgive till you're dry and dead on the side of the road. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about paying attention. It's like, are they willing to show up too? This is a very important question in the beginning, in the middle, and the end, all through. Are they willing to give up, show up? And of course, in the beginning with babies, we are receiving, but it's very self-generated. They're adorable and they're sweet and they need us and everything. And they do all those mammalian things that make us love them, but with the big heads and the eyes. But that's not what we're talking about. I'm not talking about children, because children, we are choosing to invest in children, period, and not get back. But for our adult relationships, it's just so important to be paying attention to this. And there's all this talking these days about narcissists and about all this stuff. And it's just like, if we pay attention to what's actually going on in our relationships, we won't have to fall in those holes of overgiving all the time, or being in relationships that don't serve us.
Yeah, you're making a very good point, because when I look at the relationships of people who say, oh, I was in a relationship with a narcissist, what I'm noticing is that the person entering the relationship unknowing, their bucket's not full yet. And the narcissist keeps taking. And then their bucket is empty and they're like, what's going on? And the narcissist keeps asking for more. And the person's like, but wait, I don't have any more. And so they get stuck. And then the narcissist says, well, I'm just going to take your bucket too. And it's really
Yeah.
interesting, and you get captured,
Yeah.
because I haven't been in a situation like this, but I know people who have. And it's very interesting because the narcissist will empty their bucket and then maybe give them, one spoonful, and the
Right.
person is happy with that.
Right.
But that's not enough,
Right.
that, and they keep coming back. And that's where I really see the trouble is they keep coming back, hoping for one more, when clearly, past evidence has shown that that's not what's going to happen. That can't be the outcome.
Right. And some of it is not being fully aware of what's really going on. So, being really clear and really noticing our inner senses about these things
Yes.
are very helpful, because we might get a little, something's not right here in the back of our mind or something, when everything seems okay to our intellect or whatever.
Mhm.
But wait, what's going on here? The floor is thinning. I'm going to fall through the ice. Like whatever, we can get information from our soul. And then also what you were saying, showing up with your bucket not full. Like it's like, if I'm starving, I'm going to be thrilled with like a little crust of bread.
Yes.
But if I'm full, I'm like really not interested.
Mhm.
So as I can say for me, as my bucket has gotten more and more full, I am much more choosy about my friendships,
Mhm.
because why wouldn't I be? I don't need it. Why would I put up with the hassle if I don't need it?
Yeah. And you can say no, thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is very different than I must have that crust.
Yes, because I'm starving.
Yes.
Yeah, and so these are very useful things to pay attention to, I think.
Mhm.
I'm glad we got into it, because it's just so important to have the balance. And so in this conversation, we are talking about the dividends of investing in other people and in Mama Earth and in children and in and all these things, the betterment of humanity, etc.
Mhm.
But like, can we do this with noticing that, keeping the bucket full, and noticing that I'm receiving and giving.
Yes, beautiful. I'd like to mention, we talked a little bit briefly about children and how they draw from our bucket. And if we come to parenting with a bucket that's not full, the child is going to keep drawing, because just the nature of infants and children developing, they will draw from the bucket. And so it's very helpful to begin a parenting journey from being full to overflowing, because it's the overflowing part that the children can draw from. And then if they need to take a huge withdrawal, like, oh, they're up late because they're teething, and you have to be, awake with them because they're suffering for whatever reason, you have reserves. You have something that doesn't completely drain you and result in resentment and difficulty and the troublesome things that we run into with children as parents.
Mm-hmm. And that leads to a side conversation I wanted to get to, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Both with children and with clients, with people we're serving professionally. I believe it's so important to come full and be willing to give. I mean, that's the deal as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
And we can get needs met there. With children, with clients, our needs are met, but like, that's not the purpose. That's like a side benefit. And if it doesn't happen, like, there's nothing wrong. I feel like this is just so important, because people are looking to clients to get needs met. People are looking to children to get needs met, creating their healies to be healers for them, creating their children to be healers for them, or listeners or givers. And it's very it's unhealthy, I believe. Yeah. So this is something to really pay attention to. Like, that's not a two-way adult relationship street.
Right.
Can we show up and be all about them
Mm-hmm.
for those kind of relationships? And some people have trouble with that. And maybe it's, practice or buckets. I don't really know what it is, but it's an issue.
And you're also talking about boundaries without saying the word. You also have boundaries around it. So it is all about them, especially with a client, for that period of
Yes.
time that you're seeing them.
Yes.
But outside of that, then they get to do their own work.
Yes.
It's the client who, and I'm not sure if this has ever happened to you, but who's constantly calling you and taking more of your time, that,
Right.
they go outside the boundaries, and sometimes they don't realize they've gone outside the boundaries, and they're the ones who are draining. They're the ones
Yeah. Definitely
who
boundary practice.
yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if we're conscious about it, if we're conscious about the conscious giving, and
Yeah.
we're conscious about the well is closed to, except for on Tuesdays, then then it's okay. It's easy. And when clients are coming like that, it just means that they need more support for finding their own relationship with heaven and earth and getting their needs met within.
Right.
Right? It's like they're not bad and wrong at all. They're just starving by and
And
large.
something to address in a session to
And
help them.
sometimes not trained, not consciously trained about what relationships look like, and boundaries look like. Yeah. So that's, it's an opportunity for education. So not easy, but when we take all the judgment out of it, it's a lot more comfortable, I think.
A
Have you
lot
dealt with
more
that kind of thing?
Yeah. And we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll continue our conversation about bonding dividends.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hello, I'm Dawn Spiegelberg, a posture specialist and coherence coach. We hold responsibilities on our shoulders, and when our responsibilities become too great, we begin to bend over with the load. And that load actually begins to curve our back, and in this portion of our back is our sense of commitment. So maintain alignment with who you are and the responsibilities that you actually should embrace. Contact me today to align your body, align your mind, and align your beliefs.
Hello, this is Wendy R. Wolf, and I'd like to invite you to the Graceful Soul workshops happening each Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. We're learning active meditation tools to help us delve below our everyday consciousness. And this month, we're focusing on neutrality, spiritual perspective. And we're looking at equanimity. We're finding balance within and clarity in who we are and how we see the world. Please come join us. Thank you. And I really look forward to getting together and playing on Thursday night.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I instruct an online video course that teaches anyone how to play jazz piano like a pro with my proven step-by-step system that makes it simple to learn. Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com and download my free quick start guide.
Welcome back to the Live by Heart Today show. This is show number 72. And I'm excited to continue our conversation about intimacy. This would be a great follow-up to the last show where we discussed building intimacy and investing in intimacy. So if you haven't watched that show, please feel free to go watch show number 71. And we'd like to talk about communication and staying in good communication, building strong communication. What would you like to say about that, Wendy?
Well, I mentioned that sometimes, like with us or with even longer term friends, there's times where we talk a lot and there's times we don't talk very much. And then, we pick up where we left off, then it's great and fine. But sometimes in relationships when we aren't in communication, things can degrade. Some distrust can come in, some affection can go down. It can be harder. So the competition can come in. So I find it just helps to stay in communication, especially there's certain people that it's just, if I don't talk to them, then I don't really want to. Why don't I really want to? I like them, but it gets less comfortable. So that's just something to pay attention to. But of maintaining or continuing momentum is, I can spin the plates, but I want to make sure I spin the plates every now and then, or else things can degrade. And then on the opposite side, the more I talk to somebody, the more there's to talk about. Oh, how'd it go with that thing? What happened with that person? Right? Like the bond, the many threads of what to communicate about. Oh, did you finish that book? How was it? Can continue.
Mm-hmm. I've noticed recently in the degrading communication department that there are some things that automatically turn a good conversation right around and it's rolling downhill. And I'm identifying those because the fingers are pointing at me that I did something or said something that turned it all around. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting feedback from, not just spouse, but also children. So it's an opportunity to look at that and say, oh, what's going on here? What is it that I'm saying? How am I saying it? What's the intention behind what I said? And what's really causing that train to just stop instead of moving forward? And I think you're right. Paying close attention to how communication happens and staying in communication is vital to, preventing moments when you get derailed and you're completely off the tracks and you're just like, oh my God, what a mess. How do I clean this up? It's terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's sad.
Mm-hmm.
But you're doing it. Like I'm just hearing you. You're inquiring, you're investigating, you're working it out, which is what it takes, right? I mean, that's what intimacy is. It's a whole lot of working it out because we're different people.
Yes. And everybody works it out differently, and giving grace to someone else for the way in which they work their things out. And, sometimes the things we say press buttons and we're not aware of it, or we may mean something else. We may say, oh, I want to support you or give you space, when really that idea of giving them space is pressing some button that pours fuel on their fire. And you're just like, whoa, that's not what I meant. What's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we learn the hard way. I sure do.
Very hard way. Yeah.
Yeah. Ow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can we transition?
Yes.
Because we've talked a lot about partners, and we've talked a lot about families, and we've talked some about friends. I wanted to expand more and talk about like group friendships, which are a paradigm. It's a wonderful thing to have a group of friends. Sometimes that happens from school together, or activities like Girl Scouts together, or war is well known to build really great, intense friendship groups. I really do think there's something about intensity that helps us. We're vulnerable together. There's a great need together. We learn we can trust each other. under pressure, under stress.
Yeah.
And that can make great long-term relationships, if we keep showing up for them. Do you have experience like that with any groups?
Yes. The group that I went to massage school with, we were very close, and I think it was just who we were, because sometimes the staff would say, we've never had a group like this before, because we didn't really have arguments. There weren't factions, there weren't this side against that side. We really got along together well and supported each other. And there were lots of different aged people. Some were married, some were not married, some were dating. And all of those relationships changed during school. I got married when I was in school. So I went from, being someone's girlfriend to being someone's wife.
Yeah.
And that's a big step. So, and the loyalty that we established together,
Wow.
and the grace you can give people is important, and it develops when you're in groups and taking care of each other.
Yeah, that's a great example, because you have all that intimacy, all that physical, emotional intimacy, and so much comes up when you're learning to be a massage therapist about our own bodies, other people's bodies. Like, it stimulates stuff. We get, it's a healing and a growth enterprise, that whole thing. And then you were in a very intense program. You had a lot to learn, a lot of study. So a lot of intensity that you guys went through together, and you got some value in your group from that. That's so awesome.
Yeah. And it was time sensitive too. We invested a lot of time. So one of the things I think that made our group different was that everyone in the group had a day job, and then they were practicing massage in addition to that. And so, that put us in a category of let's look at what's important here. Right? It wasn't a luxury for us to be there. It was, it came from us really needing to schedule with each other and create strong trust, and, not just flake out. And it was an interesting example. And of course, I'm reminded of what happened in 2020 and how we've, as a nation, come together against, this threat that you can't see and you can't feel it and you don't know where it is, that being the coronavirus, and where we're at, and who do we trust, and how do we work together?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and the whole world, not just our country, but the whole world and what's happening there.
Yeah. And so much loss on so many levels, including, what we're talking about, this intimacy, this connection and bonding that's real for the body. A lot of people have had, especially people who live with less people, are single, etc. So much less, at least in-person connection.
Yeah.
It's been very difficult.
Very.
So I've been wanting to say that in these two shows, because it's like, it's a gift to be able to connect. It's a gift. Are we willing to use it? That's another thing, but it's a gift, because sometimes we're held back from it by life.
Yes. And the generosity that's possible, when you see what people were willing to contribute in time and effort, in money, it's just a beautiful thing. And it's the single mind, the single eye of the mind that brings people together with bonds that aren't easily broken. Yeah. Oh, you said single focus of the mind.
Yeah. Focus. Yeah. And that's part of, you were showing it with the massage school, a shared purpose. is very powerful.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
So I recommend looking at the purpose in relationships
Mhm.
and redirecting focus and attention to that.
Yeah, and that might be a really helpful thing. We were saying last time about curiosity, but like
Yes.
really noticing the purpose. What's going
Mhm.
on? Why are we together? What are we learning? Whatever relationship it is.
And that would be the dividends you get from bonding with other people and the benefits from living by heart. Thank you, Wendy. And thank you to everyone who's with us today. If you're watching, please let us know. We want to hear from you, and you can tell us what's on your heart by leaving us a comment. For more information, please go to livebyhearttoday.com. Like and follow this page and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our programs. We're here every Thursday at 4:44 Pacific time. From our heart to yours, we're creating a better tomorrow because we live by heart today.
And that concludes this portion of
Live by Heart Today!
Thank you for watching. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Shop online at wearehistorically.com. Conscious Human Apparel.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I'll teach you everything you need to know about playing jazz piano like a pro with my 12-week online video course and downloadable guidebook, Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com.
Thank you for joining us. Have a happy always. Visit our website to view more episodes.